Hey guys, welcome back for the review now of the Zeta Gundam Ver.Ka Master Grade kit here. If you missed the live build or the unboxing, you can feel free to check those out after this. But we've got a lot of stuff to cover in this video today. I wanted to give you guys, of course, the full review for this kit, and then spend a good amount of time talking about how this kit compares with the 2.0, since that's kind of the most apt, I think, comparison that you guys are going to want to know about. And so if you guys are interested in any particular segments more than another, there will be time codes as always down in the video description below, so you can check those out. But let's go ahead and get right into it. And so one thing that you guys will notice here right away is that the kit is able to stand up pretty well on its own. I will say that it is still similar to the 2.0, and we'll talk more about comparisons with the 2.0 more focused later. But yeah, if you guys saw my review of the 2.0, and if you've ever built it, you know that just getting it to stand up in a stance like this can be difficult, just because of the way that the weight is distributed, and most of the weight is like leaning back on the ankles, so it's hard to get it to just stand straight up like this. Now this one, it's very similar. I will say it wasn't easy to get it to stand up like this, and it's not exactly like a perfect pose, but it is certainly possible to get it in a pretty good looking, just straight standing pose like that. So that is definitely an improvement. Let's take a look at the accessories here, starting off with the beam saber effect parts. The beam saber handles are stored in the side skirts as normal. This part here flips out and opens up, and the beam saber handles are right there. They're molded in black, which is interesting. I'm not sure. I suppose that's probably anime accurate, but I believe in other versions I don't think that they were black. We've also got two different action base adapters here, one for when it's in its mobile suit form and one for when it's in Wave Rider form. We've got our 1/100 scale standing pilot figure right here, and we've got an alternate V-fin. Now, unlike with the 1.0 where we had one V-fin which was in like a softer rubber material, these are both in just regular polystyrene plastic, but the difference is that this one here is not transformable. The V-fin can't fold up. The one that I have on there at the moment is the transformable one, so the V-fin will fold like that. So whether you want to transform it or not, you can choose whichever V-fin you want to use. For the hands, we've got some very interesting options here. So you have these fixed posed hands here of closed fists, or you have your kind of somewhat articulated hands. You have these hands for the left and the right, where the thumb is on a ball joint, and interestingly the thumb is molded half in gray and half in white, which does look really cool. So the thumb is on a ball joint, the fingers don't move though, but you can swap out the fingers here for either the open hands, which you can see I've got on there at the moment, and we also have fingers here for holding hands for the beam saber, and trigger finger hands there for the beam rifle, so you can just swap out the fingers here on those hands. We got the grenade launcher packs, which will just attach onto the forearms. Pretty standard there, but they do have some nice color separation with just the little bits of gray poking out there, the details that you'll see kind of all over the kit in general. Then we got the beam rifle. Now, a couple of really cool things about this. Number one is that the yellow parts on there are actual yellow pieces, so no stickers with that. When the barrel extends, it locks into place and clicks, and it's locked there like so. When you collapse it, just press it in. Unfortunately though, when it's collapsed, it doesn't lock into place, so it still like can tend to just be kind of sliding in and out like that. So I wish that that also locked when you pressed it in. The handle does fold up like that, and we have two different connection pieces here. One is for popping out for connecting this onto the back side of the forearm, and then we have another connection piece back here, which is for connecting the beam rifle on when it's in its transformed Wave Rider mode. Another thing to note is that the ammo pack on here is just a single piece, so you don't have any seam line for that. And you will have a seam line going around the weapon, but as you'll see, it's just made up to be as a detail panel line. Then for the main camera, you do have a clear part, but I went ahead and put the sticker over the top of that. For the secondary camera here at the front, there's no clear part, but there is a little extra sticker for that camera below the barrel right there. And then lastly, we have the shield. Now, first thing is there should be a little black part right here. Unfortunately, it seems like I've lost that part, so that'll be something I'll have to just scratch build a little square piece to fit in there later on, if and when I ever get to the point of painting this kit. It's easy enough, but yeah, just know that there should be a little black piece right there. Unfortunately, misplaced. So again, the yellow parts are all actually color separated, so no stickers, and that looks awesome. Here on the inside, you can see where this is just going to attach onto the arm, and then like normal, the shield does collapse or extend like so. It doesn't have any kind of locking mechanism with this one, but it feels pretty tight, so whether you have it in the extended or the collapsed form, it's going to be pretty solid there. And I do like just how angular this is, like with the kit in general, but the shield especially looks quite cool compared to past versions with it being having these sharp angles on there looks really nice. And so on the note of looks, let's talk a little bit about it and also get into the articulation here. So I do love the look of this kit. I will say I like all these really sharp angles that we have all over the place. It looks just really finely molded. The color separation is fantastic. Every little bit of yellow that you can see on here, which even on the 2.0, a lot of those were stickers. It's all actually color separated, so there's no stickers used for this at all. So all this color separation that you have on there is all the actual parts, which is fantastic. Even up here for the head, the silver parts poking out for the Vulcans there and the gray part in the vents. I did use the stickers for the eyes and the head cameras, though you don't have to. Those are clear parts, so if you wanted to paint those clear parts, you can do that. But for my purposes, I thought I would just use the stickers. But even like the little gray detail poking out in the center of the crest there on the head looks really cool, and all these bits of gray poking out. So even though it doesn't have a whole lot of surface detail aside from the armor cutouts where you can see the bits of frame in between, I like that. I think it looks good. That's totally subjective, though. I can understand if you guys maybe would like more surface detail, but I think the clean, like very clean, very sharp aesthetic for this looks really nice. You can see here's where some more of that plated silver pokes out there on the front of the skirt. Got a little bit more of that here on the top of the foot, and also on the bottom of the foot you can see some more of that exposed silver. So the little bits of silver add a nice little touch, and obviously the most notable sections are going to be the little fins here on the chest. Getting into the articulation is another area where this kit is really going to be impressive, because the head is on a really interesting joint which will allow the head to go all the way up to there, which is pretty amazing. You might be able even to get it up even further, but it's going to start looking kind of weird. But that's a pretty amazing upward movement there for the head. And then you can get that, of course, all the way down to there. And as for the torso, all right, you guys ready for this? A Zeta Gundam that actually has a torso bend here, side to side, and an ab crunch, if I can get this here, a little bit forward and back there, which is pretty amazing. Just because of the transformation, usually Zeta Gundam is just not able to do that. And it's cool because the way that the cockpit hatch is attached on there, it's via a ball joint in there, so that when you move this back and forth, that cockpit hatch can kind of rotate a little bit side to side, so that it's able to move as you're moving the chest around. The cockpit hatch is also, of course, able to open as normal. You can pop that open, and then your seated pilot figure is up inside of there like that. As for the shoulder joint, you're not really going to be able to swing that forward or back, other than just kind of pulling this whole section back a little bit like that. But your shoulder armor, you can lift up this little flap here and then just kind of lift all this up, and it's kind of tight. But you can see as we bring that armor up, it kind of lifts up this top of the shoulder armor. So you have to kind of make sure to press that back down. And like with kind of everywhere on the kit, no seam lines here on any of this, so it's all designed in a way so that it's all solid parts and no seam lines, so don't have to worry about any of that. So that folds up like so, and you can see the shoulder armor kind of collapses up there at the top, which is quite interesting. Otherwise, the arm is going to rotate there at the top. And then here at the elbow joint, you also have some bend side to side like that. And then the 2.0 had that. I didn't mention it in the review, and it seems pretty inconsequential, but just as a point to mention to you guys, it does have some side to side rotation there at the elbow, which is interesting. A double joint will give you a pretty full bend there for the elbow like so. And again, nice detail with that. The wrist is on, there's a hinge, so you can bend that back and forth, and then the wrist itself is also on a hinge and a ball joint, so you can move that around kind of every which way. And then to extend out their grenade launchers, you can press this part forward, it pops open that little door, you can fold that down, and that works pretty well, looks nice. Then to close that up, you can just push this piece back, close that door back, and it does kind of pop into place, so you have to make sure that you kind of press it. And honestly, using the grenade launcher pack here might be kind of helpful to make sure that you pull that all the way back. It should click. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that, hopefully, once that's popped all the way into place. So just make sure that's pulled all the way back, and that way these doors can close, the doors at the front can close all the way flush like that. Going around briefly to the backpack, of course the tail stabilizer will move up and down. Again, some nice color separation here with that, with the gray between the red and the white here on the back all looks good. And the flying armor, or the wings here on the back, have quite a bit of articulation built into them, of course, but that's mostly for the transformation. As it is, they're kind of basically just meant to stay there like so. But the wings, everything folds out and extends out, and it's all color separated and looks fantastic. So we'll see that more so in the transformation. But here's another point where we have some more of that silver exposed right there for those silver bits on the backpack. Going down to the waist section, the whole kind of waist section itself will move like a little bit like that. The front skirts will move up, and there's some more of that silver. The silver that you see on the front, it also is visible here on the back with that part right there and amongst the gray, and it all looks really nice there for the front skirt armor. And as you can see, no problems with the articulation of that. Side skirt armor, which is actually attached at the top of the leg, is able to move out on the joint, so you can get that plenty far out of the way, like up like that, or rotated, or however you need that armor to move. And the back skirt armor is really cool here as well, with the red accents. That's actual separate red pieces inside those little thruster bells. It looks awesome. These are also individually articulated, so you can move those as needed, and they're not going to move a whole lot, but a little bit of movement there. And again, on the underside, if you guys can see up under there, you have some nice gray detail inside there. Now for the hip joint, the legs are able to swing very far up to the front like so. Out to the side, it's going to be a little bit more tricky just because of that side skirt armor, but let's see. You can get the leg out to, seems like to about something like that, which is plenty far out to the side, I feel like, for any pose that you might want, and it feels solid. It doesn't feel like the leg's gonna start drooping down or anything, so a nice solid joint for that. The way that this locks in here for the transformation seems pretty solid, so that will hold it in place very nicely. And we've got some rotation there at the top of the thigh, and a really nice knee joint. And I want to talk some more about the frame in a little bit, but I'll just say that the frame, especially in the legs, is very different from past versions and seems really good. But the frame kind of for the entirety of the kit is all very different from the 2.0, so that works really well. You get a nice full knee bend there. You can straighten that out here. This part here at the front will also move a little bit, but there's not really much room for that to move, honestly. Here at the back, this part also moves up and down, and as you can see, kind of just to give you a hint as to kind of how the articulation of works for the transformation, that kind of pulls out and then you fold that. So differently from like the 2.0, as this part like just slides and clicks up and down, this part you just kind of fold it out like that. But anyway, again, the detail all around here looks really nice. The foot is able to transform, so that will fold all the way down, of course, like that. And then the ankle joint, you can swing it to the front like that, swing it to the back to about there when it's just going to be colliding with this section. But you can also change the angle of this a little bit side to side like so, and otherwise works pretty well. It's still just a little bit hindered just because of the fact of like the design of the legs. The ankle joint needs to be like kind of way up there, and just because it needs to transform, it's not like as articulated as I might like, but I can understand the limitations just of the design there. And before I get to the transformation and we try out some different poses here with this kit, just a note about the frame. As I was saying, it's very different from the 2.0, and going from the 1.0 to the Zeta Plus C1 and the 2.0, there was a pretty clear progression of the frame, and it was all like sort of similar, but you could see how it kind of advanced from one to the other. With this kit, it seems like they completely overhauled the frame on this and just completely started from scratch, and it's just entirely different from previous versions. There's some similarities, but it's done in a new and different way that allows for better articulation and hopefully a better experience for the transformation as well. Not that the transformation of the 2.0 was difficult or bad, I don't think that that's the case by any means, but let's see how this kit transforms. Alright, so the transformation actually, yeah, went pretty smoothly as long as you follow the instructions. It's relatively similar to the 2.0 in terms of the complexity, you know, not too difficult. You need to follow the instructions carefully and you make sure you're turning things around the right way, and then you'll basically be fine. One thing that I do want to point out to you guys is that there doesn't really seem to be anything which kind of locks the legs into place. So this is your kind of hip structure that you can see right there, that gray bit. And once it's in this position, it's not really necessarily locked in there. You have this part of your side skirt, and you can see right there, you can see that little hook kind of sticking up. That's meant to hook around there, but there's nothing that really locks it there. It's just kind of supposed to be held in there by pressure, and it kind of is. But if that comes loose, then this whole section is not really held in there by anything necessarily. Now, overall, everything does feel quite solid, and every other part has some way of kind of locking into place, and it all works out and looks quite nice. On the bottom side here, we do also have 4 points of landing gear. This part here, which is the front skirt, that will extend down here like so. This part of the shield will also extend out, and then these parts on the flying armor, on the wings, these also pull out of there like that. So it's not like wheels like we would normally see for like with the 1.0. I believe its landing gear was sort of like wheel shaped, but this is just sort of like these kind of landing pads that then it can just sit on like so. Now let's get into taking a look at some comparisons, starting off with the Wave Rider mode before I transform it back. So this is the Ver.Ka compared with the 2.0. The 2.0 is much more flat, as you can see, and now I do have the rifle on there. That is one thing that I will also mention, is that the rifle connection onto the transformed mode is much better on the Ver.Ka. On the 2.0, once you have the rifle on there, it doesn't want to stay on there very well. I can try to mess with this a little bit, but one thing is that it just has one connection point, so it kind of wobbles back and forth, like side to side a little bit, and it just tends to fall out kind of easily, whereas with the Ver.Ka, it has 2 points where it attaches, so it's much more secure in there. But yeah, it's kind of more flat. And then just looking at it from the top, the 2.0 is much larger looking. The wings are much bigger and extend out farther, where on the Ver.Ka, there's just much smaller in comparison, and you can see a better color separation there on the wings for one. But measuring it here on my cutting mat, the wingspan here on the 2.0 is about 21 centimeters, and it's about 18 centimeters here on the Ver.Ka, so the wings are definitely smaller. You turn them over to the opposite side just so you guys can see the comparison with the 2.0 having a much larger wing section there. I mean, it seems very apparent to me. Hopefully that's easy for you guys to see as well, but there's the comparison here kind of between the two. The way that the legs fold up is essentially the same. Again, it looks better on the Ver.Ka just because you have some more and better color separation for those parts, where like the thruster bell there, for example, is all red on the 2.0. But in general, I mean, they're gonna look relatively similar. And now before getting into comparing the Gundams in their mobile suit form, let's talk a little bit about the Hyper Mega Launcher. Now this is from the 2.0. Unfortunately, the Ver.Ka does not include one, so that's definitely points to the 2.0, just because of the fact that it at least has the Hyper Mega Launcher. Now some of you wanted to know, if you already have the 2.0, if the Ver.Ka can hold the Hyper Mega Launcher, and the answer is not exactly. This is the trigger finger hand parts from the Ver.Ka, and you can see it has that tab there in the front, which will plug into like the front of the handle. Now this handle here does not have that, so it won't work as it is. That said, if you did want to make it work, all you really need to do is just cut out that tab in there, but then you won't be able to utilize that with the beam rifle of the Ver.Ka. So a very simple and easy modification to make if you did want to use the Hyper Mega Launcher from the version 2.0 here with the Ver.Ka, but as it is, straight out of the box, it will not work. And even if you just wanted to hold on to this handle right here with just your beam saber holding hands, that hand also has a little tab in it, which will also make it a little bit tricky. Also, the fingers are more thick on this version, so it's going to be kind of a tight squeeze there. As you can see, what I would say is to also just cut out that tab right in there, and you should be able to get a pretty good grip here on this kind of secondary handle for just doing like a standing pose. Okay, so after getting them both transformed back to their mobile suit form, I mean, you guys will see the color differences. For one, the blues, the yellows, in the red as well. The red's probably the least noticeable difference, but definitely the blues and yellows are different. With the 2.0, the blue is a lighter, more pure blue. The yellow is more orangish. With the Ver.Ka, the yellow is more pure, and the blue is very, very slight kind of dark greenish tint to it, but a lot of the proportions are very different, especially there in the head. You have a much kind of wider, bulkier looking head here on the 2.0, whereas on the Ver.Ka, it's a much more slimmer head. And again, this one is supposed to be more anime accurate, so again, just kind of, it's all about your personal preference. It's not to say that one kit is better than the other based on the proportions, but you guys can kind of see some of the differences here, like with the shoulder armor. With the arms there are going to be looking, you know, fairly similar, but again, you have all actual color separation with the Ver.Ka, whereas with the 2.0 does use stickers for a couple of these little yellow accents here and there. Going around here to the backpack, once again, just talking about the size of the wings here on the 2.0, they're just so much larger there, especially putting the backpack together. I noticed it right away that the backpack, the wings, the flying armor does feel significantly smaller here on the Ver.Ka compared to the 2.0. And then just going down here to the legs, again, the color separation on the Ver.Ka is very, very nice. Not to say that it's bad on the 2.0, but you can see there's definitely improvements with the armor cutouts and things like that. And another thing which is not going to be apparent because it's on the inside, but the 2.0 uses quite a bit of ABS plastic for the inner frame, where the Ver.Ka does not use any ABS. So that's definitely points to the Ver.Ka. As some of you guys may know from your experience or may have heard, ABS plastic doesn't take as well to lacquer-based paints, so you have to be a bit more careful with it. So it's kind of nice that on the Ver.Ka we don't have to worry about that when painting the kit. And for me guys, now after building the two of them and just transforming the two of them, I can say the Ver.Ka feels so much more complex and feels so much more kind of fleshed out as a model kit. The 2.0 is definitely now showing some age in comparison, where I think the 2.0 honestly is still a really good kit. Being 18 years old, it still stands up very well for its age, but comparatively, I mean, the Ver.Ka definitely feels like the much more advanced model kit. And really between the two, it's gonna just come down to your aesthetic preferences. I mean, it looks old in comparison, but I definitely prefer the just proportions of the 2.0. I think I really like the proportions, but there's definitely a lot to like about either version depending on just your personal preferences for how they look. Just one more comparison here for you guys. The shield now, like I said, mine's missing that part on the Ver.Ka, but the added color separation and the added width and sharp angles on the Ver.Ka shield do look really nice, I think, here for this. So alright guys, I think that should hopefully just about cover everything. Of course, if you have any other further questions, do feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'll try to answer that for you guys. I did also talk quite a bit about the comparisons between the two during the live stream builds, so like I said before, if you missed the live stream, do feel free to go back and check those out. We talked about just kind of everything all very in depth. And so just to wrap up this kit on its own, and not talking about comparing it to anything else, it's an awesome kit, fantastic kit. Katoki and Bandai did a great job on this. Like I mentioned before, it really feels like it was completely overhauled and redesigned from the ground up. Like they didn't take into the consideration at all the past versions, they just designed it completely new from scratch, is how it feels. And it feels very fresh and quite a complex build. It's not like difficult to build. It's not like I would tell you, if you've only ever built one master grade, then you're not ready for this kit yet. That's not what I mean. It definitely will take some time though. So just a heads up that, if you're going to be building this kit, it is going to take you a little while to put it together, because there is quite a bit of interesting construction that goes in, especially for the inner frame on this. So I think it's a really great kit, whether you have the 2.0 or not. If you're just wanting a nice, very interesting master grade to build, I think this is one that I can definitely recommend for you. Now, comparing this to the 2.0, if you already have the 2.0, is it worth getting the Ver.Ka? Or if you don't have either, which one should you get? The main difference in my perspective is just going to be aesthetically. They have a little bit different look between the two of them. They both generally are able to perform the same poses, and they both have mostly the same accessories with the grenade launcher attachments and the beam rifle, the shield, the beam sabers. The transformation I think works well and looks good in both versions. Again, they're going to look a little bit different, so you may have a preference, but the other main difference is just going to be what you get in the kit, whereas with the Ver.Ka, you have the waterside decals, which is very nice, but with the 2.0, you have the launch base and the Hyper Mega Launcher, which are very nice accessories to have as well. Now, as far as future conjecture, are we going to get a Hyper Mega Launcher for the Ver.Ka as a P Bandai set? Probably. That's what everybody seems to think is going to happen. I'm not sure that if and when that happens, if it's going to be a new Hyper Mega Launcher. I'm thinking, at least my prediction at the moment, is that probably what it's going to be is the same Hyper Mega Launcher and possibly packaged with the launch base as well. The same parts from the 2.0, but repackaged. Maybe the color is going to be slightly different, and then we're going to have some new waterslide decals to match with the Ver.Ka. But it's probably going to reuse the same mold. That's just my prediction for the moment. I could be wrong about that. I don't know if or how the Hyper Mega Launcher is going to be released in some way to go with the new Ver.Ka. They will probably have to make a new handle part for it, but the rest of it will probably be the same, though time will tell. We'll have to find out. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this review. I hope that I covered everything that you guys wanted to know about this kit. I'm really happy with it. As someone who's never really been that big of a fan of the Zeta Gundam, this kit was a lot of fun to build and put together just because it was such an interesting process. And after building the 1.0, the Zeta Plus, and then the 2.0, it was very interesting to see the progression over the past 20 plus years. So if you guys want to check out this kit for yourself, the link will be in the video description below to USA Gundam Store. You guys can check out this kit as well as any other paints, tools, and supplies that you may be looking for there. And if you'd also like and or subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much for your support. I hope you guys found the video helpful, useful for you. And as always, hope y'all are having a great day. I'll see y'all next time. Bye guys.